The wind carried the scent of smoke and rot across the endless plains. Even before the woman crested the ridge, she knew something waited on the other side, something final. Her skirts were torn, streaked with dried blood and prairie dust, and her breath came in short, ragged bursts. She clutched her son's small hand, her other arm wrapped protectively around the swell of her belly. The boy, no more than 6, said nothing. His lips were chapped, face sunburned and silent, too young to understand death, but too old to pretend it wasn't chasing them. The sky was a flat, pale sheet. It hadn't rained in weeks, and the earth beneath their feet cracked with each step like brittle bones. Amelia Whitlock had once dreamed of green fields and a little homestead by the river. She'd left Tennessee with that dream stitched into every fiber of her. Now, with her husband buried under a pile of stones 300 miles behind them, and every wagon from their caravan burned or lost, all she wanted was for her son to live. A lone hawk circled above, its cry sharp and distant. They came into view of the cottonwood grove, slowly, too slowly. Amelia tried to pick up the pace, but her legs wouldn't obey. Her body, tired and breaking, was dragging her down, and time was the one thing she couldn't afford. They didn't hear the horses until it was too late. A gunshot cracked through the silence, and Amelia dropped instantly, shielding the boy with her body. Dust flew up around them. Shouts followed, half drunk, half amused. Well, a voice called out, "Look what we got here." 4 riders emerged from the trees like phantoms, faces half covered with kerchiefs and dust masks, their rifles resting easy across their saddles. One of them, the tallest, dismounted first. His coat was buffalo hide, stained and ragged, and a rusted saber hung from his belt. He walked with the slow confidence of a man who'd taken lives before breakfast. Amelia tried to get to her feet. The boy clung to her skirt. "Don't, please. We're not worth anything," she said, her voice cracked and hoarse. The man with the saber tilted his head. His eyes were pale blue, but there was no light behind them. "Oh, I don't know about that," he drawled. "You look like trouble, and trouble's worth cleaning up." Another outlaw chuckled behind him. "She's heavy with child. That kind of weight slows you down. Ain't no place for that out here." "Shut your mouth, Boone," the leader said quietly. "She's got that settler look." I'm just trying to get to Fort Hall," Amelia said. "Please, my husband's gone. My boy we haven't eaten in days. We're no threat to anyone." The outlaw looked down at the boy, then back at her. "Every settler says the same thing before they shoot you in the back." He turned and nodded at one of the others. The man rode forward and pulled a rope from his saddlebag. "No!" Amelia stepped back, nearly tripping over her own skirts. "You can't." The boy started to cry. The outlaw with the rope dismounted, calm as a butcher. He slung the noose over a low-hanging branch and began tying a knot, slow and deliberate. "Please," Amelia begged. Her voice cracked open. "I'm pregnant. He's just a child." "Can't let you go," the leader said. "You'll talk, bring soldiers. You have my word. I won't tell a soul. Just let him go. Let my son go." The rope swayed gently in the wind. The tree's limbs were bare, a skeletal hand against the sky. The leader scratched his beard, then crouched beside the boy. "You remember faces, little man?" he asked gently. The boy stared back, frozen in terror. "No." The outlaw rose. "That's what I thought." Amelia surged forward, wild with desperation. She shoved one of the outlaws hard, but he caught her by the hair and threw her down. Her belly struck the dirt with a sick thud, and she cried out. The boy screamed. A few yards away, the noose swung, waiting. The tallest outlaw gave a signal. "Do it." 2 men moved toward her, their boots crunching on dead grass. Amelia struggled to her knees, arms shaking. Don't make my son watch this," she sobbed. "Please." No one answered. Then came the sound, soft, almost unnoticed at first. A whisper across the trees, a sharp thwick, then a gurgled gasp. When the outlaws fell, an arrow buried deep in his throat. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The second arrow struck the man beside him, this time in the chest. He stumbled back, firing his rifle wildly into the trees before collapsing into the dust. "Ambush!" Boone yelled, diving for cover. But it was too late. A figure emerged from the trees, moving low and fast. He wore buckskin, lean and weathered, a tomahawk glinting in one hand and a bow in the other. His black hair was braided tight, his face marked with streaks of ochre and ash. His eyes locked on the leader, and without a word he sprinted forward. The outlaw barely raised his rifle before the tomahawk slammed into his shoulder. He dropped the weapon and screamed as the warrior pulled it free and spun, knocking Boone to the ground with a brutal kick. The warrior moved like a shadow. One by one, the outlaws fell. The last tried to run, but an arrow found his spine before he made it 5 steps. Then it was quiet again. Amelia lay frozen, blood on her hands and dress, her breath coming in frantic gasps. The boy whimpered beside her, eyes wide and unblinking. The warrior walked past the bodies without looking back. He approached Amelia slowly, stopping several feet away. His bow lowered, tomahawk dripping. She flinched as he stepped closer. He looked at her belly, then her boy, then back at her. He crouched beside them and gently cut the rope from her wrists. Not a word. Then he rose and turned to leave. Amelia didn't move. Couldn't. He paused at the edge of the grove and looked back, then pointed to the boy. Amelia understood. He was telling them to follow. She hesitated. Every instinct screamed not to trust a stranger. Not here, not now. But the outlaws were dead, and she was barely holding herself together. Her son still needed her. The baby kicked inside her, like it knew the world wasn't done with them yet. She pulled herself to her feet, stumbled, and caught the boy's hand. The warrior disappeared into the brush, leaving only footprints and silence behind. Amelia followed. They moved fast, slipping into the deeper woods as the sun began to set, casting everything in burnt gold. Branches scraped against her arms, and her legs burned with each step. Still, she kept moving. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. She didn't know who the man was, didn't know where he was leading them. But she knew one thing. Whatever fate had planned, it had just changed. And the road ahead, for better or worse, was no longer one she'd walk alone. Behind her, the noose still swung in the wind, empty. Night fell like a curtain drawn tight across the wilderness. The stars blinked into view, sharp and cold, while the wind whispered through pine needles and brush. Amelia huddled beneath a makeshift lean-to, her back pressed to a bundle of dry branches. Her son curled into her side like a cub hiding from a storm. The warrior sat across the fire, motionless, eyes fixed on the flames. He hadn't spoken once since the rescue, not a single word. And Amelia, though aching with questions, kept her silence. Her instincts warned her not to break the delicate stillness between them. The fire cast flickering shadows on his face. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and a look of something older than the forest itself. He carved something small from a stick of cedar, each movement of his knife slow and practiced. He was precise, methodical, dangerous. Amelia watched him to the veil of firelight, studying every move, searching for a crack in the mystery. Her son, Eli, stirred in his sleep, muttering softly. Amelia soothed him with a hand through his hair, her other resting over the swell of her stomach. The baby inside kicked gently, a reminder that her choices were no longer her own. She looked back to the warrior. "You saved us," she said finally, voice barely above a whisper. He didn't respond. The carving continued, his focus unbroken. She swallowed. "I don't know why." Still nothing. The silence stretched, long and uncomfortable. Amelia's eyes drifted to the tree line, to the darkness beyond. They were alone out here. She didn't know where, didn't know how far from danger or how close. A coyote cried in the distance. The warrior's head lifted slightly at the sound. His eyes flicked toward the edge of the camp, scanning the dark like a hunter watching for movement. Then he tucked the carving into a pouch and stood. He walked past her without a word, vanishing into night like smoke. Amelia blinked, unsure she should follow. Her instinct screamed against it, but something else, something deeper, urged her forward. She left Eli beneath the lean-to and trailed him quietly. Branches snapped beneath her boots, and her breath fogged in the cool air. She caught glimpses of him moving through the brush, barely audible, barely visible, a shadow among shadows. Finally, she found him kneeling beside a stream, hands cupped in the water, staring at his reflection, not drinking, just staring. She remained back, hidden by the trees. He was speaking softly now, but not to her, a language she didn't understand. His voice was low and reverent. A prayer? Amelia realized with a pang that he was mourning. Before she could step forward, he drew something from beneath his coat, a small bundle wrapped in leather. He opened it slowly, revealing a lock of hair tied with string, a faded strip of blue cloth, and a carved wooden horse worn smooth by time. He held the items close to his chest, eyes shut. Then he whispered again. When he rose, Amelia backed away, heart pounding. She returned to the lean-to and lay beside Eli, feigning sleep as the warrior returned moments later, sitting in the same spot as before. The fire crackled softly between them. He didn't acknowledge her, but she had seen enough to understand. He had lost someone, a child maybe, a wife, someone he couldn't bury in peace. The next morning, the sky was overcast, the wind sharp and bitter. They traveled in silence, moving west. The warrior led, always a few paces ahead, always watching the horizon. Amelia carried Eli on her hip when he tired, then let him walk beside her when her body demanded rest. She refused to complain, though every step felt like a needle in her back. They crossed a narrow ridge where the valley opened wide below them, an ocean of pine trees and jagged stone. Somewhere in that wilderness, she hoped, was safety. By midday, Amelia's legs buckled. The warrior turned at the sound of her falling. He said nothing, but his brow furrowed as he approached. She waved him off, but he crouched and touched her knee gently. His hand was rough and calloused, but there was no force behind the gesture, only quiet concern. She looked into his eyes and saw something she hadn't expected. Recognition. He removed his water pouch and handed it to her. Then, without warning, he took Eli by the hand and led him toward a tree. Amelia sat in the dust, watching as he pulled a length of rawhide from his belt and tied it between two branches, a makeshift swing. Eli's laughter came a moment later, bright and alive for the first time in days. Amelia smiled despite herself. The warrior returned and sat beside her, closer now, not touching, but no longer distant. He pointed to his chest. "Toka," he said. Amelia blinked. He touched his chest again. "Toka." She nodded slowly. "Amelia." He gave a slight nod in return. They sat together for a while, listening to Eli's laughter echo through the trees. It was the only sound that mattered in that moment. Later that day, a storm rolled in. The sky darkened, thunder rumbling low like a growl beneath the earth. Toka moved with urgency, finding shelter beneath a rock outcropping and reinforcing it with branches and hides from his pack. Amelia helped, following his gestures. They built quickly, hands moving in tandem despite the lack of words. The storm broke above them like a war drum. Rain pelted the earth, wind howling through the trees. Inside their shelter, they sat close, huddled together for warmth. Eli slept, head on Amelia's lap. She stared out into the storm, haunted by memories of her caravan, of fire and screaming and the smell of burning canvas. Toka handed her a strip of dried meat. She took it, nodding in thanks. "You have family?" she asked softly. He was quiet for a moment. Then he pointed to the lock of hair she had seen the night before, tucked now into a pouch at his side. He tapped it, then his heart. "Gone," he said. Amelia swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." He met her eyes, and in that silence a shared ache passed between them. Two survivors, two graves behind them, two lives hanging in the balance. She leaned her head back against the rock wall, exhaustion washing over her like the rain outside. The baby kicked again. Toka's gaze dropped to her belly. "Soon," he said. She nodded. The rain continued for hours. When it finally faded, Amelia stepped outside into the cold, wet air and breathed in the scent of pine and earth. Behind her, Toka sat beside Eli, sharpening his knife with slow, rhythmic strokes. She watched them for a long time. That night, she awoke to sound, a low growl, close and guttural. She sat up, heart racing. Toka was already on his feet, bow in hand. The growl came again, and then she saw it. A pair of yellow eyes at the edge of the clearing. A cougar, lean and starving, muscles tense beneath its matted fur. Its tail flicked once, then again. Toka stepped between the beast and Amelia, body low, breath still. The cougar crept closer. Amelia grabbed Eli and pressed him to her chest, backing away slowly. Toka waited. Then, in a blur of motion, he loosed an arrow. It struck the cougar in the shoulder, but the beast roared and charged. Toka sidestepped at the last second, drawing his tomahawk. The two collided in a flash of claws and steel. Amelia screamed as blood sprayed across the stones. The fight lasted only seconds. When it ended, the cougar lay dead, Toka standing over it, breathing hard. He staggered once, then dropped to his knees. Amelia rushed to him, ignoring the blood, the mud, the fear. His arm was slashed, deep and ragged. She tore fabric from her skirt and pressed it to the wound, hands shaking. "You're okay," she whispered. "You're okay." He looked at her, and this time he didn't look away. At dawn the sky cleared. Birds sang. Amelia sat beside Toka, dressing his wound with care. Eli played nearby, humming a tune only he seemed to know. When she was done, Toka reached into his pouch and pulled out something small. The wooden carving he'd worked on by the fire. A bird. He handed it to Eli, who took it with wide eyes. Amelia met Toka's gaze. No words were needed. Something had shifted in the space between them, quietly, without fanfare, but deeply. Not trust, not yet, but something like it. And the road ahead still waited. The land beyond the foothills changed. Gone were the thick forests and mossy stones. Now the earth stretched wide and empty, golden and cruel beneath a pitiless sky. It was a wilderness of cracked riverbeds, thorny brush, and distant ridges that shimmered like mirages in the heat. Nothing moved for miles. Nothing, except three small figures pressed onward, a woman heavy with child, a boy walking beside her, and a warrior whose silence had become the rhythm of their journey. They walked for days, surviving on dried meat roots and whatever water they could find. The sun punished them by day, and the cold stalked them by night. Amelia no longer felt the bruises on her body or the ache in her legs. What lingered was a dull, relentless pressure behind her ribs, the creeping awareness that she was running out of time. Her belly was low now, her steps slower. The baby stirred constantly, restless and urgent, as if it too felt the weight of the coming storm. Toka noticed. He watched her closely, adjusting their pace, pausing more often to let her rest. He never said anything. He didn't need to. His eyes spoke for him. At night, they no longer slept apart. They made camp closer together, their lean-to smaller and tighter against the wind. Eli slept between them, breathing soft and even. A buffer of innocence between two people the world had almost broken. One night, as the wind howled across the plains, Amelia sat beside the fire, watching Toka rub deer fat into the rawhide of his bowstring. His movements were precise, almost meditative. She broke the silence. "You've done this before." He looked up. "This, traveling with strangers, protecting people." Toka hesitated, then nodded once. "Family?" He stared into the fire. "Once." That single word held a cemetery. Amelia didn't press him. She watched the flames instead, letting the silence stretch. "My husband was a blacksmith," she said quietly. "Good man. Strong hands, soft voice. Didn't belong out here. We came west for a fresh start. Never made it past Wyoming territory." Toka didn't speak. "We were part of a wagon train. 17 families. Most of them are dead now. Disease, bandits, starvation. Same old story, I guess." She rubbed her swollen belly. "I'm not sure I'll survive the birth," she admitted. Toka's head turned sharply. His eyes narrowed, not in judgment, but in refusal. "You will," he said. It was the first time she'd heard certainty in his voice. She looked at him, tired and hollow. "You don't know that." "I do." A moment passed. "Why?" she asked. Toka picked up a burning stick and drew a crude shape in the dirt. 2 peaks, a river, and a small mark between them. "Shelter," he said, pointing at the mark. 3 days. Amelia stared at the symbol, her heart tightening. A destination. Hope, even if fragile. That night, as the fire died down, she watched him sit against a stone and close his eyes. He didn't sleep like most men. No tossing, no restless shifting. Just stillness. The quiet of someone who had long made peace with danger. She didn't realize she'd fallen asleep until a sound woke her hours later. Eli whimpered in his sleep, but it wasn't his voice that stirred her. It was the wind. Something had changed. A pressure in the air, heavy and wrong. She sat up, her heart racing. Then she saw it. On the distant ridge, silhouettes. Mounted men. Toka was already awake, crouched with his bow drawn. He motioned sharply, a flick of the wrist. Hide! Amelia scooped Eli into her arms and crawled behind a boulder as Toka vanished into the shadows like a wraith. Her breath came in shallow bursts, panic fluttering in her chest. Voices echoed faintly from the ridge. Laughter. English. Settlers. Or worse. She held Eli close, whispering in his ear to stay quiet. The boy nodded, eyes wide with fear. Minutes passed, then more. Suddenly, a muffled grunt, the soft thud of a body hitting dirt. Then silence. Toka reappeared, face grim, blood on his knife. Scouts, he said. 5. More behind. How far? Half a day. Amelia's mouth went dry. Are they following us? Toka shook his head, searching. For what? He didn't answer. He just looked at her belly. They broke camp before dawn, moving faster than ever. Toka carried Eli most of the way, never showing strain. Amelia kept pace as best she could, but pain clawed at her lower back, and her vision blurred in waves. That evening, they came to a ravine. Toka paused, scanning the horizon. Then he pointed across. Ahead. The ravine was steep, the drop treacherous, the far side lined with jagged rock and scrub. Amelia stared at it, dread crawling up her spine. I can't cross that, she whispered. You can, he said. But her legs trembled. Her breath hitched. Toka walked back to her, knelt down, and pressed his hand to her shoulder. I will carry him, he said, nodding at Eli. You go first. She stared at the drop, then back at him. No, she said. If I fall, who'll help him? You won't fall. It wasn't just encouragement. It was a command, a belief so firm it cut through her fear. Amelia stepped forward. Her hands gripped the stone. Each foothold was a prayer. Sweat poured down her face, and her arms shook with effort. But she made it, one step at a time. One breath, one scream of pain from her lower belly that made her think. Now. The baby's coming now. She collapsed on the far side, panting, as Toka crossed with Eli on his back. When he reached her, his eyes searched her face. Soon, he asked. Amelia nodded, teeth clenched. Soon. That night, as the stars burned overhead, she woke to a deep pressure low in her spine, a dull ache that pulsed through her bones. She sat up, gasping. Toka was beside her in an instant. It's time, she whispered. He didn't speak. He just knelt beside her and placed his hands gently on her shoulders. Hours passed. The pain was endless, like fire from within. She screamed until her voice was raw, until the stars above her blurred and vanished. Toka stayed with her the entire time, his presence silent but unwavering. When she thought she couldn't go on, he pressed a cool cloth to her brow. When she sobbed that she wanted to die, he placed her son's wooden bird in her hand. Breathe, he whispered. And she did. The child came just before dawn. A girl, small, bloody, screaming. Amelia wept, holding the baby to her chest. Toka built the fire higher. He cleaned the child with gentle hands, wrapped her in hide, and laid her beside her mother. Eli approached slowly, eyes wide. Amelia smiled through tears. Your sister, she said. The boy sat beside her, cradling the baby's hand. Later, Toka sat nearby, watching them with something close to awe in his eyes. Something unspoken passed across his face. A memory, a wound, a moment of healing. Amelia looked at him. Stay, she said. His eyes flicked up to hers. Not just to protect us. she added, voice shaking. Stay, because we want you to. Toka didn't answer right away. Then he nodded once, and in the rising sun, with a newborn sleeping between them and the long, broken land behind, they shared a silence deeper than words. A beginning, but the peace wouldn't last. Not yet, because shadows still followed them. And somewhere out there, more men rode. Men who wouldn't stop until what they'd once claimed as property was found and punished. But for now, for this one moment, they had survived. Together, smoke curled into the sky, like a warning. Black against the blue, it drifted up from the canyon beyond the ridge, thin, acrid, and fresh. Toka stood at the edge of the bluff, one hand gripping the shaft of his bow, the other resting at his side, fingers twitching with silent calculation. Behind him, Amelia adjusted her daughter against her chest, the newborn quiet but alert, her tiny fists clenched. Eli clung to her side, eyes fixed on the smoke. They found the trail, Toka said at last. Amelia didn't ask how he knew. The tension in his shoulders told her enough. That same tension had rippled through him back when the ravine had offered its last narrow escape. Now, the enemy was close again, closer than ever. How many? She asked. 6, maybe more. She swallowed, her throat dry. What do they want? Toka turned, his expression unreadable. To finish what they started. The wind picked up, rustling the scrub and bending the grasses. In the distance, the canyon narrowed, leading toward a cluster of ancient stone dwellings. The ruins Toka had spoken of days earlier. Shelter, but also a trap. We can't outrun them, Amelia whispered. No, he said. We stand. Her heart pounded. She was no fighter. Her body still ached from childbirth. Every breath felt like glass in her ribs. But she nodded anyway, because there was no choice. Because this was her land now. This rough, cruel stretch of earth that had taken everything and still dared her to survive. Toka crouched beside Eli, his voice calm. You stay with your mother. Don't move unless she tells you. Understand? Eli nodded, his jaw tight. A boy forced to become something else too soon. As the sun climbed higher, Toka moved with careful purpose, laying traps, choosing ground. His body knew these rituals. He was no longer just a man. He was memory, vengeance, and wind given form. Amelia watched him and realized that what had once been mystery had become conviction. She laid the baby down in a cradle of fur, hidden beneath a shelf of stone. Then she picked up the rifle one of the dead scouts had dropped days ago. It was heavy, awkward, but loaded. She looked at Toka. I can shoot, she said. He nodded, without question, without testing her. The silence before the storm was unbearable. Then, hoofbeats, thunderous, cruel, echoing across the rock. Amelia held her breath as the riders crested the far side of the canyon. Dust rose in their wake, and the sun glinted off barrels and buckles. At the lead was a man with a wide-brimmed hat and a scar that ran down from either chin like a dried riverbed. His name was Joseph Lanton. She knew that face, had seen it laugh when her husband was cut down, had heard his voice order her strung up. She felt the burn of bile rise in her throat. Lanton raised a hand, and his men fanned out. Toka stepped forward from behind a rock, arrow nocked and drawn. Amelia held her position, hidden. Don't try it, Redskin, Lanton called out. This ain't your fight. Toka didn't flinch. You hunted a woman and child like animals. Lanton grinned. Wasn't a hunt, just cleaning up the trash. Toka released. The arrow struck the man beside Lanton square in the throat. He fell without a sound, blood spraying the dry earth. Gunfire erupted. Toka vanished into the rocks, moving like smoke. Amelia fired once, the recoil jarring her whole body. A rider dropped, tumbling off his horse with a scream. Eli covered his ears, eyes wide with fear. 2 more men dismounted and advanced on foot, rifles drawn. Amelia ducked behind cover, heart hammering. She reloaded, fingers fumbling, lips whispering prayers she hadn't spoken in years. One of the men got close, too close. She rose, aimed and fired. Click, a misfire. The man grinned, stepping over the rocks, rifle raised. Then a knife flashed. Toka peered behind him, silent as death, and drove the blade deep. The man gasped once before falling. More shots rang out. Toka took a hit in the shoulder. He stumbled, gritted his teeth, but didn't fall. Amelia screamed his name, but he waved her down, pressing a hand to the wound. From the ridge, Lantern called out again. "Give it up, girl. That Mongol can't save you now." Amelia stood, rifle still hot in her hands. "You remember me?" she shouted. Lantern squinted. Recognition flickered in his eyes. "I remember the look on your face," she said. "When you killed my husband." Lantern smirked. He begged like a dog. Amelia raised a rifle. Lantern didn't flinch. "You think killing me brings him back?" "No," she said, "but it stops you." A sharp crack. Her shot rang out. Lantern staggered back, clutching his side. Not fatal, but enough. He roared in pain and fired wildly in return. The bullet struck the rock behind her. Shards flew. She ducked, bleeding from a cut on her cheek. Toka moving then, fast and relentless. Despite the wound in his shoulder, he charged. Lantern tried to reload, but it was too late. The two men collided like thunder. They fought brutally. Fists, elbows, knees. Not elegant, just raw fury. Amelia watched, breath caught in her throat. Lantern got the upper hand, slamming Toka against a rock, hands closing around his throat. Amelia moved, grabbing the knife from the fallen man nearby. She ran. As Lantern raised his gun to finish it, she drove the blade into his side. He howled, turning toward her, fury in his eyes. Toka didn't hesitate. He slammed Lantern's head against the rock. Once, twice, a final time. The outlaw slumped lifeless. Silence fell. The dust settled. The smoke drifted upward, thin and lazy now. Amelia dropped the knife. Her hands shook, blood on her palms. Her daughter crying softly behind her. Toka turned, his face battered, eyes tired. They looked at each other. Two survivors. No words, just the truth between them. Eli emerged from behind the rocks, running to them. Amelia knelt and pulled him close, her body aching but whole. Later, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in crimson and gold, they buried the bodies in a shallow pit. Amelia stood over Lantern's grave, lips pressed in a tight line. "He won't come back," she said. Toka stood beside her. "But he won't follow." They left the canyon behind, heading north toward the mountains, where Toka said there were springs and trees and land that remembered what peace felt like. Days passed. The baby thrived. Eli smiled more. Amelia began to walk straighter. And one morning, under the branches of a cottonwood tree, Toka placed a carved ring of bone in Amelia's hand. Simple, worn smooth. "No priest," he said. "No papers." Amelia nodded. "Just this?" He nodded again. "An oath." She took his hand. "Then I swear." Their life ahead would not be easy. The land would demand more of them. Winters would be hard, and memories harder still. But they had made it this far. Through fire, through blood, through dust and loss. Now, they had each other. And sometimes in the wind, Amelia thought she could hear the land whisper back. Not in English, not in Shoshone, but in the wordless voice of all things that endure. Live. And so they did. Together.